Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Today, we have a new set of crazy stories for you. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. There's always a smarter person than you. Cast, me, yours truly. Partner, my business partner. Accounting woman, head of the accounting department of a customer site. Site director, an all-around good guy with a vicious streak. During my time as a consultant, we started having payment problems with one multinational client. Specifically, this one site stopped paying their bills. Their excuses got worse and worse. Now, we had a great relationship with the site director and various executives, but this accounting department suddenly couldn't find its arse with either hand. After 6 months, it started looking like time to hire a lawyer and threaten lawsuits. A horrible idea with really bad consequences for repeat business. But the accounting woman we liaised with suggested a face-to-face bring all your documents meeting, 3 hours drive there, and the same on the return trip, probably a 2-hour meeting, but it was a significant amount of money. Unfortunately for her, we had just acquired a neat little electronic gadget. Just to optimize our time there, we set up a meeting with the site director to touch bases. Double bonus, we could cut short a dragging on meeting by mentioning we had to go see site director. She waffled, talked about anything and everything and nothing, wouldn't say why any of this was happening. Me and my partner exchanged disgusted looks and stood up to walk out. She hurriedly got to the point. For an administrative fee of X, she would see that payments would be made within the week. A flat-out bribery holdup. We exchanged another look. Me. You seriously want us to pay you X to do the job this company is already paying you for? Accounting woman. It would certainly help. Partner. If we get the money to you by the end of the day, you'll unblock the situation? Yes. I assume you want cash. Yes, cash will be perfect. Right, let's go. We left and went straight to the site director's office. He graciously showed out a subordinate so he could meet with us earlier than planned. We pulled out our neat little electronic gadget and played back the recording of the relevant bits of the meeting. Site director. Thank you for confirming my suspicions. I'll take care of it. You'll be paid within the week. You understand we'll be keeping the original of the recording. You can't have a copy. Not necessary, thank you. I'll take care of it. Have a nice trip back. Payment arrived 3 days later, in full. Celebration. A different person became our site liaison. During a future mission at that site, we were informed, unofficially, that accounting woman had been promoted to head of warehouse, for which she had no training, and told to sit in a corner and just handle the inventory count, already run by computer, while her 3-week leaving period ran out the clock. I strongly suspected, some interesting questions from our new accounting liaison, a forensic accounting effort to nail her with professional malfeasance and wreck her professional reputation and unemployment benefits. Teal dear. Accounting woman tried to hold up payments until we would pay a bribe. Site director listened to our recording and brought the hammer down. Notes: I avoided revealing the nature of the gadget to avoid spoiling the big reveal. The reaction of the site director was unexpectedly positive and easy. We figured that it would be a shock/meet resistance, but no. And our next story. Boss slammed me in a door, so I killed his business. This happened about 7 or 8 years ago. I was working at a small cafe which was owned by a young woman in her mid-20s. She was a lot of fun to work with. I put my best foot forward, and it had a great sense of community. Almost every customer was a regular. I was in a small town near a lot of car and boat repair shops, and directly next to us was a family-owned business. They were very religious and very kind. I loved the environment there and the customers. It was a regular thing to be given flowers and little things like that. Anyway, my boss didn't really have it in her to run the cafe. Business was great, but it took up a lot of her time, and she was young and didn't want to be tethered to it. She sold it pretty easily, and the new owner, a big guy we'll call Albert, was gregarious and laughed a lot, told jokes. He wanted me to stay on. I knew how to run the place and how to make all of the sandwiches and so forth. I thought this would be great, even if I would miss my own boss. The first day with Albert, he was immediately impatient with me. I couldn't do anything fast enough, and he hated the way I prepared food. Usually, one person ran the till and took orders, and the other prepared said orders. It was a fast process with me and my old boss. With Albert, he effed up every time and blamed my short-form way of writing out orders. I started writing everything out. Chicken on focaccia, tomato, lettuce, sun-dried pesto spread, which he would still F up. He accused me of patronizing him and finally of sabotaging him. During close-up, he would berate me further. I dreaded coming to work, which was too bad because he had me working every day but one. His wife was frequently there helping out, and she was always friendly and funny and liked me. Albert didn't treat me any better when she was around. He snapped at me a lot in front of our customers, and a few of the guys had talked to me about it. He treated her with a lot of contempt, too. One day, maybe after a month of this, I couldn't take it anymore. He called me stupid for some reason or another. The why wasn't what mattered to me. Up until that point, he talked to me like I was an idiot, but hadn't actually called me a name. I told him, "I'm not your wife. You don't talk to me like that." And he flipped out. He grabbed me by my apron and dragged me toward the back door, yelling at me, "Get out! Who do you think you are?" etc. I shouted for him to get his hands off me, and while I was struggling to get my apron off, he shoved me outside. He still had a hold of the apron, then let go just as he stepped back and tried to slam the door. It was a heavy, reinforced door with a panic bar for unloading stock, alley access, so on. My leg was still inside, and the minute he slammed it on me, I screamed and fell back. I think he knew he'd effed up. He shut the door on me and locked it. I was shaking with adrenaline and crying some, but more than anything else, I was PO'd. I got up from the ground, and the father of the family business next door had heard me shout and met me as I circled around to the front. I wasn't really that badly hurt, but because I was crying and shaking, he immediately assumed it was much worse than it was. He put his arm around me and wanted me to come into his store. I saw Albert watching us through the front window of the cafe. I laid it on thick. I cried harder. I told the dad what happened in big, gulping sobs. I held my leg and was overall pretty pathetic. Albert saw the whole thing. "Eat it up, mother effer." After that performance, I went right home. I contacted my old boss before anything else. She still had to deal with this guy, and I didn't want to cause trouble for her. She had pretty much finished up her business with him, save for a few details, and told me he'd gotten belligerent with her on one occasion in a way that put her hackles up. She didn't like the idea of me contacting the cops, but since I didn't see a way it would impact her at this point, that's exactly what I did. The cops gave me a few courses of action. I could press charges, and I was pretty young and now unemployed, so I didn't really want to do that, or the cops would go have a long heart-to-heart with them. I thought that was a pretty good start. So they took pictures of the bruising on my leg, just in case. I bruise easily, and it looked a mess for maybe a month or so. A couple days later, Albert starts texting me like mad. He wants to meet up to give me my last check. I told him he could mail it. He refused and kept insisting I come to the cafe in the morning before opening so we could talk. This back and forth went on way too long, so I cut him off and told him to mail it to me or I'd come by with the cops during rush to get it. After I got my check, I decided I wanted my record of employment too. There's no reason I needed it at that time, but I just wanted it. I dogged him for days until he sent me one. It had correction fluid on it. That's not allowed. I dogged him yet again until he got the replacement. I already had another job at this point and just wanted to needle him. 2 weeks after the dance in the doorway, I go back to the neighborhood and stop by the garages and shops to say hello to everyone. They're glad to see me. They wondered where I went. Albert told them I quit to work elsewhere. They mentioned the cafe has been pretty slow lately. It turns out the dad from the business next door had mentioned what happened to a few people already, so I share my side of the story with everyone. I found a way to bring it up in gory detail to everyone. I stopped in each shop to say hello. I was in the neighborhood. You want to see my sick bruise? Maybe 6 months later, I'm in town and take a wander to check on the cafe and say hi to the guys. It was always tucked way back from the main road. Nobody driving by would notice it and think to stop in. The local businesses around it were its lifeblood. Without that, Mother Trucker had closed the cafe down pretty fast. Everyone had stopped going. In a small way, it was sad to see it closed and dark and empty. I had a lot of fun there, and losing the cafe and moving on to another job basically meant I lost contact with all the guys. I think if I hadn't lit the fire, Albert would have eventually ended up killing the place anyway. It still feels delicious that I beat him to his own failure, though. And our last story. Insult me in a different language? Okay. Having dinner with my family, this story was brought up that I think belongs here with a mix of justice served. This happened to a family friend. Let's name him Sean. His parents are American, but lived in South America when he was born. He was also raised there, so naturally he grew up speaking perfect Spanish, though he obviously didn't look Hispanic. Blonde, green eyes, fair skin, etc. Fast forward a couple decades, he's now in his late 20s and has moved back to the U.S. where he's lived since his teens. So both his Spanish and English are perfect at this point. He goes to a certain Mexican fast food place, let's call it E. coli, where employees add your ingredients down the line and you pay at the end. As soon as he starts ordering his food, two of the workers, both Hispanic, start to make fun of his hair, his skinny jeans, and essentially his entire appearance. I remember him mentioning them specifically calling him a marica, which essentially translates to the F word, and also them wondering how he fit in those tight jeans and concluding he probably didn't have any. All while subtly laughing and still maintaining a professional demeanor as they fill his bowl. Sean was able to stay composed and quiet and acted completely oblivious to everything they were saying and just carried on down the line ordering. By the time he gets to the cash register, the cashier, who was not one of the two employees, rings him out. That's when he calmly asked the cashier to call over the two employees, which they did since there was no line at the time. When the employees come, wondering what was up, Sean says in English, "I really appreciate the service both of you provided. Your commentary was also top-notch. Now, if you could be so kind," and then, without missing a beat, he says in perfect, zero-accent Spanish, "Me pueden llamar a su jefe," which translates to, "Could you call over your boss?" Sadly, I wasn't there, but he says their reactions is a moment he will never forget. The manager gave him 10 gift cards to the restaurant, as well as not having to pay for that meal, and living close to that specific location, he never saw those two employees again. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.